Good morning, everybody. Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany is our very special guest today, Thursday, August 14th, 2025. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching DrydenWire Live, presented by Americans for Prosperity, Wisconsin. AFP Wisconsin works to reignite the American dream and break down government barriers that hold us back from our full potential. Visit afpwisconsin.com to learn more and join AFP to fight for more freedom for all Wisconsinites. With that, we welcome Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative, who joins us every second Thursday of the month, Congressman Tom Tiffany. Tom, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
Not at it's August. Say you don't look like you're in your office. It's the August break, so you're at home, binge watching Netflix, just hanging around, doing some yard work. Right? You get a month off.
The honey-do list is long, the month is short.
So what have you been up to? It's been a couple of weeks since you've been out of session. What have you been doing?
Yeah, so like last night I was over in Eau Claire, met with some people over in Eau Claire. You know, we've been doing meetings with people about policy stuff, you know, really talking about the big, beautiful bill and all that was contained in it. And able to take a little bit of time off. I've been on the pontoon boat a couple times. That's been nice.
Boy.
And the aforementioned honey-do list, I'm chipping away at it.
Attaboy. I saw you were in our area here. You were at the Minong Parade. I think it got rained on. Did you get rained on at the parade?
Yeah, we've been doing some stuff over near. Yeah, we got rained on, but it was great. It's good to be in Minong. I hadn't done that parade in quite a few years.
How many parades?
And,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But it was all worthwhile because I left with a Jack Link's beef stick.
Like, no kidding. That is the only legit beef stick out there. And I love these things. That's my world. Beef jerky, beef sticks, snack sticks, whatever you call them. I love that stuff. It literally is the only one that's even worth it. I've tried them all. It's the only one worth buying. Total shameless plug for our local links, but no kidding. It is actually good. Very good.
They do a good job.
They do. How many parades do you do a summer?
You know, it depends. Probably 12 to 15 during the summer. I mean, we did 6 alone on the 4th of July. So we do the whole parade circuit over in,
Sure.
Three Lakes, Rhinelander, Tomahawk, Minocqua, Lake Tomahawk, Anago. I mean, we do that on the 4th of July alone.
When you go to these events and you go to, because you're at the Reagan picnic, I know you've done some of those, the Reagan Day events. How many times do you get asked, so are you running for governor? How many times do you get asked that?
So let's explain a Reagan picnic, right? So what Republicans do, Democrats used to have what they called Jefferson Jackson dinners, Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, famous Democrats. That's what they always titled their annual dinner that the county party would do and whenever everybody gets together. And I don't think they do that anymore. I think they've, I don't think they do the Jefferson Jackson thing. I think they've set them to the side for whatever reason. But anyhow, what Republicans do is we refer to them as Lincoln dinners, but many have now changed the name to either a Lincoln Reagan dinner or a Lincoln Reagan Trump dinner. So anyhow, for our listeners out there, it's these annual dinners that each party does, and they take some of their standard bearers and attach their names to it. And so what was the question again?
When you go to these, how many times, like the first question is, hey, nice to see you, maybe again, or maybe for the first time. Is that like the first question that you get asked just in these last couple of weeks?
That's why I forgot it. That's why I forgot it. I didn't want to answer the question. That's
Fair enough.
Yeah, there's more than a few people that are asking that question, including the media around the state.
Sure.
We're going to make a decision here in the next month. And what I've been assuring people is by the end of September, we'll make a decision on this. We're not going to drag it out. But it's a big decision, especially having representation, being able to represent the 7th Congressional District out in Washington, D.C. I mean, it's certainly something that I've enjoyed. and there is more work to be done. I pose this question, Ben: where can I do the most good for the people of the state of Wisconsin? That's the question I'm answering here in the next 30 days.
Uh, you should work for DrydenWire. That's where you could do the most good.
Is that job offer?
Not non-committal. Okay, we can talk about it later. So speaking of governors, since the last time you were on, Governor Evers announced that he wasn't seeking re-election. You put out a statement. Our headline to that was Tiffany responds to Evers' retirement. Wisconsinites deserve better. You had written, I thank Governor Evers for his years of service and wish him well as he announces his retirement. However, he leaves behind a legacy of decline. Under the education governor, student achievement has fallen behind Mississippi. Wisconsin faces a structural deficit, and energy costs now rank second highest in the Midwest. Wisconsinites deserve better. It's time we change course before we end up like Minnesota and Illinois. What I want to ask you about in your statement or in your response to, was the education part. Absolutely get it. So you have like 3 points that you hit here. Our student achievement has fallen behind Mississippi. Wisconsin faces structural deficit. And these are things that citizens talk about. I talk about with friends. It's on the lips, both those things. But the energy costs now rank second highest in the Midwest. You put in energy. That's something that I don't think we really talk a lot about. And I don't mean necessarily you and I mean just when I'm talking to my friends about things. Where does that rank for you in energy? Should we be paying attention to that more? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah, it will decide whether we're going to be a prosperous society or not. Take a look back at energy costs over the last century, and there's a direct correlation between the cost of energy and American prosperity. We do well when energy costs are lower. So when President Biden came into office in 2021, when he was sworn in, within a year, gasoline prices were up to $4 to $5 a gallon. Mm-hmm. That coincided with the inflation and the cost of living going up because everything moves with diesel fuel in the world. And so there's going to be a direct correlation on that. When's the last time that we saw that type of inflation? It was the 1970s. What happened in one of the biggest news stories of the 1970s will always be the oil price shocks as a result of what happened in the Middle East. And so there's this direct correlation between energy prices and prosperity in America. So you have to have lower energy prices. And it's why President Trump is so focused on it. But I think you also have to be focused on it as a state. So we used to be among the lowest in the Midwest in terms of electricity prices. We are now among the highest in the Midwest. And what concerns me the most about that is the jobs it puts in jeopardy. We are a heavy manufacturing state. Per capita, us in Indiana are always number 1 and 2. The number of jobs that are out there that are associated with manufacturing per capita, we are always number 1 and 2. And so if you raise these, especially electricity prices, you're going to see our manufacturing businesses be more under threat. It's really important because, the electricity prices, take a foundry, something like that. Electricity is number 2 or 3 in terms of expenses for the company. It is a big deal. And so if we're going to make things in America once again, we got to make sure that we have low energy prices. And we're going in the wrong direction here in Wisconsin. And by the way, I thank Governor Evers for his service to the people of the state of Wisconsin. But the reality is we have these major problems that are before us because states are choosing at this point. Are you going to be a prosperous state of America, or are you going to be one of the states in decline? And we see the states that are in decline. People are fleeing. California, last census, for the first time, they had a decline in population in the history of the state. Why? Because people are tired of the DEI, the woke, and the high energy costs, amongst other things. It's driving them, including businesses, out of the state of California. New York is the same way. Well, Minnesota and Illinois are the poster child for that here in the upper Midwest, where they are clearly states in decline. Is Wisconsin going to be one of the states in decline, or are we going to be one of the prosperous states of America? People are going to make that decision now in 2026, I believe. I think it's going to be a watershed election for the state of Wisconsin.
So I'm learning more about energy Actually, I was talking to Paul Scheckman, who actually will be our guest next Thursday on next week's show. Paul Scheckman will be on. He's, for people who don't know Paul, he's what I would consider a subject matter expert on energy. And the more he explains to me about energy, the more I realize, my goodness, this is like a really big thing. And again, I don't feel like we're really talking about it. So he'll be on the show next Thursday to get into more of it. We have a couple questions here I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss. Donald Trump ran on full transparency, but is now blocking the Epstein files release and called the whole issue a hoax. Do you support his view and action to move convicted Maxwell to a low security prison with no transparency on the decision?
So I always support full transparency regardless what is happening in Washington, D.C. And I would just add to the questioner there, I think what is coming out in regards to President Obama and Hillary Clinton, all the information in regards to the Russia collusion hoax, I think all of that should come out. So I've always been for full transparency. And I believe it's President Trump that kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago because of his connections with child pedophilia. And I mean, there are news stories out there, and I would urge our listener there to take a look at that also. And also, it is an Obama appointee who just I think it was the last week, people could check the news story, that denied opening some of the Epstein files. So there's a lot more to it than just his question. But in regards to how I view these things, full transparency for the American public, and let them be the judge.
Awesome. One more here. Dan says, what outcome would you like to see in Ukraine after Putin's invasion?
Peace. I'd like to see peace over in Russia and Ukraine. And I sure hope that President Trump is able to accomplish that. I hope Ukraine is able to maintain their borders and bring peace to their country. And hopefully Russia will go back to just being Russia and not invading Ukraine and other countries.
All right, we will have more with Congressman Tiffany in 15 seconds after a word from Spooner Health.
Compassion is at the center of everything we do. It's rooted in who we are and why we're here. It unites us as providers, neighbors, and as a community. Learn more at SpoonerHealth.com.
You had a press release that you put out a few weeks ago. We put it on our website as well. The headline was Representative Tom Tiffany introduces bill to end visa loophole for universities. This is the Colleges for the American People Act, or the CAP Act. For people who didn't see that, what is that about and why should they care?
So there's a visa called the H-1B visa, and it's for specialty occupations. There's 65,000 people that can come into America on H-1B visas each year. That's the threshold, is 65,000. But there is an exception for universities. And here in Wisconsin, the universities have taken advantage of it. And I think as a result of the reporting by Wisconsin right now, I think they revealed there's 495 of those positions at the universities of Wisconsin that are filled by people who are from outside the United States of America. And what my bill does, the CAP Act, it says that you shall fit those people within the 65,000 cap. In other words, there'll be no exceptions to the cap. And part of what I would say in regards to this, Ben, is that we are the most generous country in the world. We allow nearly 1 million people a year to come into our country legally. I mean, there's no other country that is as generous as we are. And I think people saw over the last few years, there has to be some limits in regards to immigration. And why aren't these positions being filled by Wisconsinites or people from the United States here is the question that I have.
So is this essentially, could we frame this almost as a hire Americans first reform?
Yeah, it's along those lines. Yep.
So what's the pushback? What are critics saying? Well, hold on. So is it an issue that we have? So we always want to hire people based on merit, right?
Yes.
And if there's somebody that's great, especially in certain fields, especially probably even for research, a lot of universities do research. So if there's somebody from, I don't know, India or something, just pick anything, any country, and they would be better for it, and there's more of them in some other place. We'll just say anywhere across the world. if we want to hire Americans first, absolutely we should probably put that as a first priority. But if they're not there, would the critics say that this is actually going to harm because we can't attract the talent?
Apply within the cap. There's 65,000 people that are allowed in the United States every year, and just make those submissions within the cap of 65,000, and I'm sure they will get some of these people. But you make the same argument that an attorney for the universities made. Said, we can't always find qualified people. Isn't that an indictment of our educational system? Are they not doing a good enough job to be able to have homegrown talent, be able to fill those positions? I mean, we've seen the decline in our educational standards here in Wisconsin, and it's time to set higher standards, not lower standards. And I think that if they're doing their job of educating young people, they'll be able to fill them with homegrown talent.
Sure. We have a question here from Michelle. Can you talk about the rollbacks of DEF? I don't even know what that is. For our farmers and truckers, my friends have been excited about that. And also, thank you for fighting for us.
That's the first time I've seen that name, Michelle, and that is a terrific question because it's big news here in the last week or so. So what the Environmental Protection Agency is doing is there's something called DEF fluid. It's diesel exhaust fluid. And it's something that's relatively new in the last decade. And what it's meant to do is reduce emissions. Well, what has happened, it's an add-on thing to the engines of trucks, and it has been just a debacle, especially here in the northern climates, because it freezes at 14 degrees. Now, you tell me, Ben, do trucks ever run in northern Wisconsin when it's below 14 degrees Fahrenheit? Yeah. So it's a real problem. Give you an example. I talked to a log trucker. He has to have 7 trucks in order to keep 5 on the road at a time. Think about that. You got to have 7 trucks because they have that much downtime. The technology is not working. It is meant to reduce emissions. But I would say to you, if you did the life cycle of DEF fluid from its production to distribution to all the problems it's creating, I would say we're burning up far more fossil fuels than the pollution that it's eliminating. We should go back to using the good technology that we have and not have this DEF fluid required. Now, to what Michelle was asking, there's been a rollback by the EPA in regards to requiring this DEF fluid to be used. Now, there was not a complete elimination, so it's a little bit more nuanced than that, but it's going to, I believe it's going to allow these trucks not to be, what would happen is if it's not working, it throttles the truck down. I think there's a sensor in there that causes the truck to throttle down, so it won't work properly. You got to take it into the shop, get it recalibrated, reset, whatever the case may be. I don't know all the technical aspects, but you got all kinds of downtime. I've been heard from town governments. I've heard from private contractors on this issue for years. It is a big problem. I hope this helps solve the problem, what the EPA has done. It's a big deal. If you talk to people that run diesel equipment, it's a big deal because it started about 10 to 15 years ago, and it's been a debacle.
Well, thanks, Tom, for explaining that, and thank you for Michelle. Again, I've never heard of this, so I'm putting that on my list of things to start researching, just kind of educate myself on. I have a few more things I want to get to, but let's get to one more question here from Kim Wheeler. What are you doing to help protect Wisconsin's natural resources?
So I think there's a lot of good things that are happening on the natural resources front. I think about one thing. I believe it was a year or two ago. I'd have to go back and double check, but we put more money into the study of PFAS. We don't know the full impact in regards to PFAS, but we put more money into the federal government doing more research in regards to that. I would also say to you that making the Apostle Islands a national park is directly related to natural resources. I think it's time for the Apostle Islands to be designated a national park. It's one of the truly special places in the United States of America, which we have been committed to preserving. And so I would list that as another example. I'll give you another example. In regards to our forests, we're going to see more active management of our forests if the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management begin to do a better job of forest management, we're going to see the environment improved by having better management of our national forests. And that's been one of our priorities in the Natural Resources Committee, is to make sure we have better forest management.
Mm. Hey, how those wildfires doing up in Canada? Did you get that solved yet?
Yeah. We've been having a pretty good back and forth with some of our Canadian friends. The Premier of Manitoba called me an ambulance chaser, and I said to him, the only people chasing ambulances down here are people with respiratory problems.
Yeah, that's a thing.
That need to go in and go into a healthcare facility or whatever. But in all seriousness, it is a big problem. And this goes back to what we were just talking about in regards to forest management. And that's what I'm urging the Canadian government to look at. You got to do more active management. And when they point fingers at us, well, why don't you do it in America? I say, you're absolutely right. And I'm an equal opportunity critic. The Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management need to do the same thing, especially in the western states, where we've seen these massive wildfires over the last 10 years. I view the Rubicon year as being 1988. That was the watershed year when we adopted a more preservationist mentality here in America in regards to our national forests rather than management. And what happened as a result of it? Wildfire went up, forest management went down. There's a direct correlation. If we do a better job of managing our forests, the environment is going to be cleaner, but also we're going to create more jobs, because we've seen sawmills close down as a result of the lack of management.
It seems simple, but it
is simple.
Well, then how come we're not always doing it?
There's people with a preservationist mentality. When you go to the corporate environmental groups that raise, hundreds of millions of dollars, some of them billions of dollars, they believe their job is to shut down industry. They do not want industry in America. They want to have this garden, what they view as a garden here in America, and they don't want humans on significant parts of that landscape. It's a very preservationist mentality, and there's more and more people waking up to the fact that it does not work, especially when it comes to our forests. They're a renewable resource. And we have this great history in Wisconsin. After the cutover in the early 1930s, we set in place a forest management plan that it was the envy of the world. And now, 70, 80 years later, after doing that, people come in with this preservationist mentality from outside Wisconsin and try to dictate to us how we should manage forests. No, we know how to do it. And we should use that forest management that was used so successfully in the last half of the 20th century.
A couple of things here I want to get your thoughts on. I saw this morning in the news. It's about single stock trading ban in Congress. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called for a ban on lawmakers trading individual stocks. Do you support that?
I don't have a problem with it. I don't trade stocks, so I'm fine with it. I mean, it's one of those things that has been abused. As a result, the privilege has to be rescinded or at least scaled back as a result of it. And I mean, we all know Nancy Pelosi and her husband, they're the poster child for this.
Yeah. Another one I saw was that Trump administration says that they may reclassify marijuana. It's currently a Scheduled 1 drug. You and I think talked about this maybe December last year. It was about a year ago or less. And I think there was discussion. I think Biden wanted to make it a Schedule 3. For whatever reason, it just kind of stalled out. I don't know why. But now Donald Trump is saying his administration is looking at potentially reclassifying that. Where do you stand on that issue about reclassifying?
Yeah, I haven't read into what President Trump is talking about there too much, but I think the key thing is to continue to do research in regards to, especially at the federal level, to be able to give the states as much information as possible about the impact of marijuana, because there's a lot of people that they use it for medicinal purposes. Yeah. And if it helps them, that is a good thing. But there's also a lot of research that has been done, and I think needs to continue to be done, especially amongst young males, 18 to 25. my understanding is the male brain is continuing to develop into our early 20s. And at least I hope mine was back in the day.
Yeah, my wife would disagree. I think she still thinks mine's developing.
So anyhow, the male brain, in all seriousness, male brain is still developing, and people are very concerned about the impact of marijuana, especially on young men, if they are heavy users. Does that alter the brain? Because there's been some research that says it leads to psychosis, which is very dangerous. And so I think this is another instance where more research could be really valuable for policymakers to make a good decision in regards to legalization and what legalization would look like.
And just to be clear, so if it goes from a Schedule 1 to a 2 or a 3, that allows what? That allows more federal funding for more research and studies? So you're saying more research. How does that tie into it being reclassified?
Yeah, I think that I think what you're describing, taking it off from Schedule 1, does allow for research. I don't know the technical aspects of that real well. I don't want to say something that would be inaccurate. I think you're right about that. But regardless, I would just like to see more research in regards to it. I think it'd be really valuable for policymakers to be able to make that informed decision in regards to the science of marijuana use on the brain.
Yeah. Well, we're almost up against our time. Next time we'll be chatting again, second Thursday of every month. You'll be back in session. What's on the docket already? What are a couple, 3 big things that you're going to be walking into? I thought I heard something about a continuing resolution, maybe a government shutdown again. It seems like we're talking about that every year. What's going on when you get back? What are you already starting to think about and anticipate?
Yeah, so the end of the fiscal year is September 30th. And so there has to be a budget done by then, or do a continuing resolution to continue the spending on autopilot. And I'm not sure what's going to happen, but we'll have those discussions. The Appropriations Committee, when we broke in July, was working diligently to pass those appropriations bills. I think there's 13 of them that have to go through that become the full appropriations bill. And that'll be worked on here in September. And I'm sure we'll run up against a deadline. Congress gets things done on deadlines. And when we get to September 30th, I'm sure that there'll be whether it's a continuing resolution or the full bill will be passed, something along those lines will happen. I'm going to be really pressing on the wolf bill here in September and October. We passed it out of the Natural Resources.
Still not done yet?
To delist the wolf, and waiting for leadership to give us a vote on it. I'm really going to be pressing on that in September and October. Get it up, hopefully pass it through the House, get it to the Senate, and really hopeful that Senator Thune will make it a priority to get it done. But first, we got to do our job in the House and get it passed.
Do you have any updates on what I call Ben's big, beautiful bipartisan bill? That's the one that you're going to introduce that says you cannot call passing of a bill bipartisan if you don't have 15%. Now, I can compromise. I'm a move the ball forward kind of guy. I can do 10%. But if you just get like 2 people on the other side to vote for it, you can't call it bipartisan. You need at least 10%, ideally 15% on the other side in order to champion it as a bipartisan bill. How's that coming along?
So the Dryden standard, I think, is going to just be, it's just going to be enforced by you.
Okay.
I got a couple of things that are a little bit more important to do.
Okay.
But, hey, have at it, Ben.
Okay.
It's your show.
All right. I'll even write the bill and send it to your office and see if they can get that through. That's fine.
I'm sure it'll have a lot of what are they and whatever. How is that? How does that
and
go?
Therefore, and where?
Yeah. They're fortune owners. I'm sure there'll be a lot of them in there.
Oh my goodness! Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you next.
So,
month.
What are you doing for August?
For whatever my wife tells me, dude. I have a small little husband brain, which is why I let my wife do all my thinking for me. So I'm doing whatever she tells me to do.
And people say Ben Dryden is not a wise man.
Thanks, man. We'll see you next month. Special thank you to Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany for taking the time to come on for a chat today. And thank you for all of your comments and questions. I'll see you all next Thursday when I'll be chatting with Paul Scheckelman as we discuss everything you wanted to know about energy but were afraid to ask. So until then, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching and have a blessed day.